Did Trump go to war for Netanyahu for Israel?
I think largely yes. The Netanyahu administration has been very persuasive over Donald Trump.
You are on the Intel Committee.
I've not seen any evidence that would satisfy an attack. I think with this power vacuum, we may see a series of civil wars for the next few years.
This presidency, this State Department has abandoned thousands of Americans in the Middle East.
This was clearly an attack to distract us from the Epstein Files. Donald Trump is trying to show the global community that he has the big stick to establish a very shaky legacy, a very questionable legacy, and take us away from his failings here.
Barack Obama attacked Libya, and there was no war powers vote. There was no congressional authorization for that. Why the double standard? Even President Donald Trump's most diehard supporters are struggling to keep up with the White House's messaging on Iran as the administration continues to change the narrative on why they apparently had no choice but to wage war on Iran. Initially, Secretary of State Marco Rubio claimed that the US decided to join Israel's planned attack on Tehran as a, quote, preemptive measure, out of fear that Iran would retaliate by attacking US forces. But later, Trump directly contradicted Rubio, suggesting it was he who, quote, forced Israel's hand and claiming that Iran would have attacked first if the US didn't take action. Regardless of the exact story, the question remains, was this really a preemptive strike? Is there any evidence that Iran posed a serious or imminent threat to US security? Or is Trump just trying to distract from a failed domestic agenda and an administration embroiled by the Epstein Files? Joining me now is Congressman André Carson of Indiana, a Democratic member of the House Intelligence Committee. Congressman, thanks for coming on the show.
What an honor. Thank you.
So let's just get into the meat of this. I do want to talk about the war powers vote that we're going to see in Congress this week, a lot of other issues. But let's just get to the nub of this. The United States attacked Iran on Saturday, killed the head of state of Iran, the Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, on the grounds that Iran apparently was an imminent threat to the United States. Iran was going to attack us first. You are on the Intel Committee. Is that the intel you've seen?
I've not seen any intelligence that would satisfy that kind of attack. This was clearly an attack to distract us from the Epstein Files. And what is clear to me is that this is a hegemonic attempt for Donald Trump to put his footprint in the region, not only in the Middle East, but in the global South. We've seen what has happened with Maduro. We've now seen what happened in Ecuador. And now Donald Trump is trying to show the global community that he has the big stick, all in an attempt to establish a very shaky legacy, a very questionable legacy, and take us away from his failings here.
So when you hear, it's interesting for someone like yourself, who's a member of the Intel Committee, when someone like Scott Jennings, the MAGA pundit on CNN, says on Twitter, as he did over the weekend, senior Trump administration officials tell me that credible intelligence indicated Iran planned preemptive missile strikes against US military targets in the region and against civilian targets as well. Failure to act would have resulted in mass US casualties. You're saying that's a lie?
I've not seen any evidence that would satisfy an attack. I think that the Netanyahu administration has been very persuasive over Donald Trump. Donald Trump has an issue. He projects himself to be very decisive and a very clear leader, but it's clear that he's most influenced by the last person he speaks to. And that's the kind of leadership that troubles me. He's a masterful marketeer, but as a leader, he doesn't have the constitution and the resolve to convince generals, let alone the American people, that he's our commander-in-chief.
Do you say he's influenced by the last person he spoke to? I completely agree. That last person on the Middle East tends to be Benjamin Netanyahu. Multiple meetings in the Oval Office, more trips to the White House than any other leader I can think of since Trump came to power. Did Trump go to war for Netanyahu for Israel?
I think largely yes. I think more broadly into the future, I think it's about establishing his footprint and his stake and legacy by any means. If Netanyahu is the vehicle to get him there, he'll do it. If it's someone else, he'll do it. He tried to come to my district, Indianapolis, as you know, last year, threaten our governor, threaten our General Assembly to get rid of my district and Frank Mervan's district. It failed, thank God for Hoosiers and smart-thinking Republicans, because he wants to change the course of the midterm elections. And for me, that's somebody who's not only impulsive, but is very afraid that he could not only get indicted, he could get impeached and lose power.
You mentioned the midterm elections. Do you think this is going to cost Republicans a lot of seats? It's a very unpopular war.
I think the way it's trending, absolutely. I think the larger question becomes, what does this democracy look like if we continue with a failed president and a Republican Party and a speaker who's willing to rubber stamp his very disastrous agenda?
So you've got this attack in the Middle East.
Sure.
You've got Americans now abandoned in the Middle East. I'm thinking the Republicans made a big deal about Benghazi. You were in Congress during Benghazi.
Absolutely.
They made a big deal about the Biden withdrawal from Afghanistan and abandoning Americans.
Sure.
This presidency, this State Department has abandoned thousands of Americans in the Middle East.
Daily, I'm hearing from Americans who are stationed overseas. I'm hearing from friends who are in Qatar. I'm the co-chair of the Qatari caucus. They've been a big ally. They are deeply concerned. They can't afford the cost, the hotel costs, and extending their stay there. They can't get flights out. And so what we've heard from the State Department is that they could perhaps be willing to pay for some of those expenses. What that looks like, we'll see. But I'm deeply concerned. The lives of Americans abroad are at risk. And now, because of retaliatory threats, we could see attacks on our homeland by folks with terrorist organizations seeking to seize upon the moment, as it were, or sleeper cell operations as well.
Well, we had an attack in Austin at the weekend in a bar that's still being investigated.
Sure.
There was allegations that there were ties to Iran, Islamic extremism. We don't know yet. But I'm old enough to remember the Iraq War when the intelligence agencies told Bush and Blair that if you attack Iraq, you will only embolden Al-Qaeda. It'll be a recruiting sergeant for jihadist groups throughout the Middle East. There'll be attacks on the US and UK. And that's exactly what happened.
Sure.
The UK suffered the 7/7 attacks in 2005. We saw the creation of ISIS as a direct result of the Iraq invasion. Are people talking enough in this town in Washington, D.C. about the long-term blowback from this war? I mean, they just killed Ali Khamenei, who, like him, love him, hate him, whatever your view of Ali Khamenei is, he's no normal leader. He's also a spiritual leader to a lot of people. His fanatical followers, I'm assuming, might want to take revenge. I mean, there's a lot that could go wrong in the coming months and years that no one's really talking about in the U.S. media or on the Hill.
You don't hear it in D.C., but I'm most concerned about Iranian Americans who obviously face retribution from the ignorant part of our communities. They've made great contributions. I have childhood friends from that community. But even more so, I'm hearing from local folks. We have the largest single sporting day event in the entire world, the Indy 500. We got to get you there. I'm concerned about major sporting events that could be used in a symbolic attack to say, hey, we won't let this slide in this forever war. And so as someone who comes from Homeland Security, comes from law enforcement, comes from the city council, but sits on the intelligence committee, I lose sleep over a domestic attack every day.
Do you believe Donald Trump has endangered American lives at home?
Without question.
Liking this video? Then don't just watch. Hit like, share, and subscribe. And tap the bell so you never miss a video or live show. But if you want early access to exclusive content, then you have to head to Zeteo.com and subscribe now. You'll be supporting fearless, independent journalism.
He's endangered American lives since he took office, not only in 2016, but very recently, over a year ago. And so what he is doing is actually outside of the vision of the founding fathers who he purports to model himself after. They had a vision of three separate but very equal branches of government to act as a check on the other. What he's doing is presidential excess and overreach, and Congress has to keep him in check.
I want to talk about the checks and the war powers vote that's happening this week. Before I get to that, just on the intel, are you worried that intelligence could be manipulated going forward as it was in the Iraq War? You've got someone like Tulsi Gabbard, former colleague of yours. I don't know how friendly you were with her when she was in the House.
Yeah.
She was a lefty in the House. She was on the Bernie Sanders campaign team in 2016. She was a Democratic member of that, and she defined herself, I'm sure you remember better than me, as being the anti-war person, right? She literally was selling merch in 2020 saying no war with Iran. She was the big don't attack Iran. And now she's director of intelligence for a guy who has attacked Iran. She hasn't quit on principle. We've seen her in Georgia where they're taking ballot boxes. How much do you have faith in someone like a Tulsi Gabbard to actually produce reliable intelligence of what's happening in the Middle East?
I know Tulsi Gabbard to be a patriot. It seems as if, I mean, look, the intelligence world, as you know, is very competitive. There's always kind of this a contest of who has the bigger stick with which agency. And I think she's being boxed out in many ways. That's not a defense. But it's clear she's being boxed out from conversations with the FBI.
They didn't even tell her they were attacking Venezuela.
Precisely.
She was on the beach doing yoga at New Year's.
Precisely. And so I think the question becomes, will she be the OD&I director to have oversight over these agencies with big egos and big agendas? Or will she be there as a figurehead and sit there symbolically while the director of the FBI and the CIA and others do their work on behalf of Donald Trump?
I got to ask you mentioned the Iranian diaspora here in the US.
Yes.
A lot of them, we don't know how many because people are, I don't want to treat them as a monolith, but a lot a big chunk of the Iranian diaspora supports this war, supports taking out the Iranian government, the theocratic part of it, support maybe bringing back the Shah's son from the US to rule the place. They say thousands, tens of thousands, they claim, were killed earlier this year. We know that many protesters were killed. We don't know how many, but it's surely in the thousands. And they say that means the government's got to go. And even if Iranians die right now, it's worth it to get rid of this government. What do you say to them, the people who say regime change?
These folks are some of our friends. I'm very sensitive to their concerns. My very close childhood friend is an Iranian American. I have an in-law who adopted an Iranian child in the 80s, a special needs child. So I'm closely tied to that view. But if you look on the ground in Iran, it's the polar opposite, pardon me. And so I think it's a very complicated and murky issue, as we both know. I would hate to see a U.S. installed leader have to face multiple assassination attempts, have to face credibility issues, which he will inherit, obviously. But also, more so than that, I think because of this power vacuum and the 2 or 3 people who could have done it have been killed.
According to Trump.
According to Trump. I think with this power vacuum, we may see a series of civil wars for the next few years.
Yeah, that's my worry too. And there's been reporting this week that Donald Trump is speaking with Kurdish leaders about arming foreign groups. Yeah. That's never backfired on the US before, arming foreign fighters.
We love the precious Kurds, but I think at the same moment they could be used as a distraction to still push Israel and the U.S.'s efforts long term.
Let's talk about accountability and let's talk about holding Trump to account. The Senate is expected to vote today, the day we're speaking, on Wednesday, on the War Powers resolution introduced by Democratic Senators Tim Kaine, Adam Schiff, and Chuck Schumer. This would force an end to U.S. participation in the current hostilities. The House will be voting, I believe, on Ro Khanna and Thomas Massey's bill on Thursday.
Yes.
Are these bills going to pass, given the Republican support for Donald Trump?
I sure hope so. I would love to have some Republicans not just think about their reelection efforts and not upsetting Donald Trump where he's playing in their districts. I think that's driving a lot of their posture right now. But I would like for them to think about the Americans at home and abroad whose lives are in jeopardy. I would like for them to think about the innocent men, women, and children in the region who are deeply concerned about the future of the region and the future of our country. And so if they have good conscience, I think the people will stand with them and they'll vote with Democrats and Thomas Massey.
6 House Democrats, 6 of your colleagues, are trying to back an alternative War Powers resolution that would give Donald Trump another 30 days to carry on fighting without any congressional authorization. People like Josh Gottheimer of New Jersey, Jared Golden of Maine. What do you make of that?
Well, I mean, they're playing their personal politics. I think the Massey-Khanna resolution is the best one so far.
Their personal politics being they support Israel, so they quite support this action.
Precisely.
I got to ask a question about, you mentioned the co-equal branches and Trump violating that. And we talked about the War Powers resolution. A lot of Republicans point out, and it's a valid criticism, even from bad faith Republicans, and you were in the House at the time,
yes, sir,
that Barack Obama attacked Libya, and there was no War Powers vote. There was no congressional authorization for that. Why the double standard?
Well, many Democrats were critical back then. I mean, obviously there's a 60-day window. And after that 60 days, the president has, I believe, 30 days to get troops back home.
But the 60 days is based on an imminent threat, which Iran does not pose right now. And Libya did not pose to the U.S. in 2011.
That is correct. That doesn't make it right.
Yeah.
But I think, look, it's one thing to run and campaign on a position. It's another thing to get a briefing from the CIA and FBI director, skewed or not. And I think your perspective changes dramatically when you see the scores of attempted threats upon our infrastructure, upon our men, women, and children, upon Americans at home and abroad.
Threat from who?
A threat from terrorist entities, white supremacist entities, extremist groups in general.
No, but how does that apply to 2011? I'm asking about the double standard.
I think your perspective changes. That is not to justify it, but I'm saying the Constitution is not the Quran. The Constitution is not the Bible. It's not the Bhagavad Gita. It is a working and evolving document that is open to interpretation.
Do you think in hindsight the Democrats were wrong to have let Barack Obama attack Libya without congressional authorization?
Oh, sure. I'm sure President Obama would say it himself, right? But that was what?
Because it's undermined you now
15,
when you
14
say
years ago.
Donald Trump can't do this, and the Republicans say, well, you did it.
Well, Democrats aren't perfect. That's very clear. Right?
I think we can agree on that.
And I think anyone in government who is reflective and introspective can look back at bills they've supported or bills they've introduced and have evolved and say, hey, let's make the necessary corrections to move forward. Presidents included.
You mentioned Donald Trump is a master marketeer.
Yes, sir.
He presented himself as an anti-war candidate, as you know, in 2024.
Sure.
You know that a lot of Muslim Americans, Arab Americans, voted for Trump, like 1 in 4, 1 in 3, depending on which poll you look at.
Toes, brother.
You know this. We had these conversations, you and I, back in 2024.
No doubt. Yeah.
He went to places like Michigan and got big crowds of people cheering him in Dearborn.
Yes,
and then this is the guy who has attacked multiple Muslim-majority countries, Yemen, Iraq, Somalia, Afghanistan, and now Iran. He's done what no American president, not even George W. Bush, has done.
Sure.
Do you think some of those voters, anti-war voters, even the MAGA voters, not just the Muslim ones, have buyer's remorse?
I'd like to think so. I hope they are introspective. I mean, look, the community has wrestled with this battle for proximity. Either it's proximity to whiteness or just proximity to power. This is an ongoing struggle that's not exclusive to the Muslim community.
No.
I mean, it's unique to even the African American community, the Latino community, and other communities. But with our community specifically, we knew what we were getting into because Donald Trump introduced the Muslim ban in his first term.
Yeah, and bombed a bunch of countries in his first
Absolutely. And so,
but I guess the argument is that the Democrats allowed him to play the anti-war card because Kamala Harris didn't run on an anti-war card. Kamala Harris said Iran is our greatest adversary, she said in 20. Now she's come out with a very strong statement recently, props to her, saying she's against this illegal war. But when she was running for office, she said we want a lethal military. She said Iran's our greatest adversary. Meanwhile, Donald Trump was going around saying, look at her with Liz Cheney, I'm going to be the peace candidate. And people believed it.
I can assure you we would have been a lot better off with Kamala Harris, but that's another discussion.
I agree with that.
Yes.
I agree with that. I'm saying, but Kamala Harris's campaign allowed Donald Trump to pretend to be the anti-war guy. You left that space open, your party.
Again, I mean, that campaign, arguably, I'm sure she'd say herself, needed more Medis and fewer DC consultants and insiders.
Maybe fewer Liz Cheneys.
But perhaps, and maybe going forward, if she runs again, she'll hire you or someone like you as a consultant. Understood. But maybe you can make a recommendation because I think we would have been better off with her leadership. I think she's a great human being. But having said that, look, Democrats make mistakes. Democrats are not a monolith, as you know.
Agreed.
And I think a progressive in Iowa is not the same as a progressive in San Francisco or Minneapolis. I used to joke with our dear brother Keith Ellison and say Keith could run down the street naked and get reelected, but in Indiana it's political suicide.
Yeah.
We're both progressives. We both have almost an identical voting record, and Keith is my big brother.
I mean, separate to political suicide, I'd advise you not to run down the street naked.
For many reasons.
Before we finish, I got to ask about something non-Iran related. Well, it is kind of Iran related because it's a pro-Israel, anti-Muslim congressman who is in the House. Randy Fine of Florida, who is a freshman congressman from the GOP, said multiple racist comments about Palestinians, Arabs, Muslims, says mainstream Islam is pure evil. Recently, he said, if they forced us to choose, the choice between dogs and Muslims is not a difficult one. He's not been censured, let alone suspended from the House. What is going on? Why has there been no action taken?
He and I have been at war on X regularly. I condemn that kind of bigotry. I condemn that kind of racism and xenophobia. And it's the kind of racism and xenophobia that undermines the credibility of the Republican Party to let that kind of member of Congress stand, get support without any retribution or punishment.
In fact, the Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights, Harmeet Dillon, tweeted at me this week saying she's a big fan of Randy Fine. She thinks he's great.
That's so unfortunate.
I mean, that's the Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights praising a man who says mainstream Islam is evil, Palestinian is synonymous with evil, we should flatten Gaza. Genocidal stuff.
We can't let that kind of activity slide. I mean, what has happened in Gaza is a clear genocide. We have to say it and have to be unapologetic about saying it. And members of Congress who want to tout that kind of vitriolic language should be punished and rebuked publicly.
They haven't been, unfortunately, because the Republicans don't care. André Carson, Congressman from Indiana, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, dear brother. Appreciate you.
Did you like this video? Don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel and turn on notifications. For exclusive content and to support our independent, unfiltered journalism, head over to zeteo.com. Your support matters.